Hey, hello everyone, and welcome to my first ever video in English. In this video, I am going to talk about the Radeon RX 6800. Well, I have to say, I don't usually make English videos, and the reason is because, I don't know, I feel a little bit uncomfortable due to my accent, even though I live in the UK, so I have to speak English every single day. But I don't know, there is something weird or different about making English videos, but I thought, why not? The reason is because I know many people out there are looking for information about the new AMD RX 6800, and I had the luck to get one. So, seeing as how scarce they are, I thought, well, let's make a video. Let's make my first English video with this car and see if people like it. If people like it and they want me to create more videos in English, not every single video I will make in English since this is a Spanish channel, but maybe some of the technical videos I do, like when I test video games and stuff, I can also bring it in English if you guys out there like it. So let me know in the comments and let's see if we make more English videos or this is the last one. So in any case, I have to say that when I was given the opportunity to get an RX 6800, it wasn't given by AMD, it was just given by a company I know. I paid for it, so it wasn't a free thing. I jumped to get the RX 6800 because it's the lower tier of the three that AMD is going to release. We know they're going to make the 6800, the 6800 XT, and the 6900 XT in a couple of days. Then I guess they are coming to with the 6700 and the 6600. I don't know. But so far, that's the one I decided to get because I thought this is the cheapest one, so it should be the more interesting one. I use for my personal rig a 3090, an RTX 3090, so this card was bought only for testing purposes, especially because now Cyberpunk is coming, and I really want to see how the games play, the games plays on an AMD card. Anyway, so the build of the card is very good. It's really a beautiful card. I didn't know when I was buying it that the Powercolor version was the reference card model, so I thought it was like an AB model, but it wasn't. It happens to be that it's a reference model, and I have to say it's a beautiful card. It's all made in like metal. I don't know if it's aluminum, but it's a really beautiful one. It's the construction is very heavy, it's very sturdy, so it's a very nice card. But at the end of the day, I don't know you guys, but I don't really care about looks. What I care is about performance. And normally I will present a very some numbers, raw data, like, you know, all throwing all kind of numbers out there and just giving you how many FPS the cards run in certain games and so on. But I thought, you know what, let's make this different. I like the format that Random Gaming in HD uses, which is just presenting the games and talking a little bit about them and showing you the numbers on the screen while these things are happening. So I thought, okay, let's use that format and see if people like it. And so here are my finds. Red Dead Redemption is one of those games that you always want to know how it goes, and I have to say that you can play this game with max settings at 1440p, always above 60 FPS. And even though a Threadripper 1920X is not the best gaming CPU out there, it's more than enough to at least achieve 60 FPS in every single game. At 4K, then the game doesn't run really at 60, you can get around 40 to 45 frames per second. I'm sure if you tweak it a little bit, you will be able to get those 60 frames per second. But I think in the worst case scenario, you can always limit 30 FPS. But I would prefer to play at 1440p 60 FPS. I think this game still looks gorgeous at that resolution, and the smoothness of the frame rate really is worth it. Death Stranding is one of those games that it runs really well. So all you have to do here is set 4K, everything max out and forget, because the game will run like a dream. Obviously, if you don't have a 4K, this means it's going to run even better. So you don't have to worry about frame rate or anything like that, unless you really want to run like at 165 frames per second or more. But I think this game will always go above 80 to 90 frames per second in 1440p. I play on 4K, so I think it really looks awesome in this $600 car basically. So I think it's very well worth it considering its 2080 Ti performance here. Then we have control, and well, you know, ray tracing is probably not one of the strongest part of these cards, and I had to lower the resolution to 1080p to be able to achieve like decent frame rates, but even so I was like half the time under 60 FPS. There is a moment where you can get more, but it will depend on what happening on the screen. As you can see in this scene, is a very particle heavy scene, so the game won't run very well here. The main problem is this AMD doesn't have anything like DLSS yet, so this is obviously affecting the results, but also ray tracing, as I said, is a little bit more weaker on this card. So maybe with optimizations in the future we're going to see better performance, but at the moment you can play this game without ray tracing or just with the medium ray tracing, and so you will have to play a little bit with it if you want to achieve good results with ray tracing on. It will run perfect without it, so there is that. Jedi Fallen Order is one of those games that runs much better on Nvidia cards, so it's always going to affect the performance on AMD. However, I found out that you can play this game on epic settings without having dynamic resolution at 1440p max settings and still have a very playable frame rate. Of course, if you want to, you know, clean up those little ups and downs, all you need to do is just set the dynamic resolution or lower the quality a little bit, and you're going to get a steady 60 FPS at 1440p. At 4K you will need to sacrifice a little bit more probably, and then also have dynamic resolution, which means it can probably go up down as much as it needs to, but then are you really playing at 4K at this point? I don't know. I think you will have to experiment, but at 1440p you're going to get a very good experience. I honestly think that Assassin's Creed Unity is one of the most beautiful Assassin's Creed ever made, even more beautiful than the latest Assassin's Creed Valhalla. And the fact that you can play at 4K max setting with this card, it tells you how much Assassin's Creed love AMD cards. This is a game that you need like a 2080 Ti in order to be able to achieve those frame rates, at least in a stable form. Now here you can play at more than 60 frames at all times, achieving even 75 to 80 frames at some point, and the game runs like a dream. So if you have a 4K monitor and you always wanted to play this game at the best setting and at minimum of 60 frames per second, you can do that with the 6800, no problem. Really, really beautiful game and great performance. We have another one of those games where all you have to do is just crank up everything up and forget about it. Because with Resident Evil 3 you're going to get even above 100 FPS with the 6800 at 4K max settings. So there is not much to say, to be honest, about these titles when they run so well, because you know, it's not one of those games where you have to play with the resolution or the settings or start, you know, checking around to see what you have to lower. You just set it up at 4K Ultra and forget about it. It will run very, very well, as you can see here. So obviously any resolution under 4K is going to run even better. So yeah, 6800 again, a beast. Metro Exodus is another one of those games with ray tracing, and obviously had to test it with ray tracing on, Well, the performance is all over the place. Sometimes you can get at 1440p max settings like 60 FPS, and then it goes down to like 40. It's really changed from frame to frame. It's really erratic. So I don't know. I think this case and ray tracing and AMD doesn't go very well. It's a shame, because when you put the game at 4K, you can play at 80 FPS without ray tracing. So the card is more than capable. But obviously ray tracing makes you lose at 4K. You go down to like 32 frames. So it's making you lose 50 frames just by activating ray tracing in this game. At least in this particular game. You know, so if you want to play ray tracing, just keep it at 1440p. Horizon Zero Dawn is one of those games you can play also at 4K ultra settings. However, it will dip down to 50 FPS when you are in the open world. In close environments, it can hold 60 FPS, but then it will change. So I would recommend using 4K if you want, but with original preset, and that will keep you 60 FPS no matter what. It's really the quality doesn't change that much. It's really good looking game. But if you want to play you know, ultra quality and 60 FPS or above, you will need to lower the resolution at least to 80% scale or go to 1440p. And finally, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, the latest game from Ubisoft and the Assassin's Creed franchise. You know, this game runs like a dream on AMD card, and on the 6800 you can play this game at 4K ultra settings. However, you'll have to activate the dynamic resolution scaling. However, even so, I never really noticed when the resolution went down. I guess it goes down by a little bit only sometimes, because if you set it at 4K fixed, then you're going to see some dips like around the 50s, but with the dynamic resolution you can see that the game is holding steady the 60 frames, and I can't really see the dipping in resolution. So that means the resolution must not be dipping big enough so for you to notice. So this game is really good on AMD cards, and the 6800 is just such a good card, man. Okay guys, as you just saw, I think the 6800 is really an amazing card. I really love it in terms of performance, in terms of aesthetics. Yeah, it's a little bit rough on the ray tracing side of things. I think if that's something you care, and I certainly do, I do care about ray tracing a lot. That's the reason I have a 3090. I think ray tracing is here to stay, and it's just going to be the future, so that for me is very important. But you know, I don't think this car is bad in ray tracing. It's just not as good as a 3070, for example. This means that you know, maybe with future updates and optimizations they will go better. I don't know. I think Nvidia is ahead in ray tracing compared to AMD, but I still think to be the first AMD ray tracing card, that it is not bad. The biggest problem right now is that AMD doesn't have anything to compete with DLSS, and this is very important because we know how an unplayable game can become completely playable thanks to DLSS when using ray tracing. So for now, AMD said they have something in the works, but the problem is that whatever we say is just pure speculation. We don't know how good it's going to be in terms of visual quality. We don't know how good it's going to be in terms of performance. And so we don't know what games are going to support it. So all of this is just a speculation. So it can take a year before we can see anything, or 2 months. We don't know. We know already that Cyberpunk is not going to support ray tracing on AMD cards, which also means they are not going to have any sort of DLSS or AI scaling imaging. So this is, you know, we can compare to that. But when we talk about rasterization only, I think the AMD 6800 is a very powerful beast, especially if you play at 1440p. And don't forget, this card has 16 gigabytes of VRAM, which is very important for many people. I am not so much RAM obsessed, and honestly I think for 1440p 3070 8 gigs of RAM is enough. I think by the time you really need more RAM, you probably are going to change the GPU anyway, because it's not going to be fast enough. But you know, everyone has their priorities. Some people like more RAM. I like ray tracing, so some people don't care about ray tracing. So I think, you know, everybody has their own opinions about what cards will satisfy their needs. However, I just wanted to show you these results, and let's see what you think about the card. You know, maybe you're trying to find one, you already saw hundreds of reviews, but now that I have one and I can talk a little bit about them, I think you may find this video useful. So if that's the case and you like the video, I'll try to be better. It's just not easy for me speaking English on my first video. You get a little bit nervous. I don't know how this is going to be received, especially by my audience already. So I'm sorry for any stutter or any wrong word that I may have used trying to make this video. I'll try to improve in the next one if you guys want to. So yes, that's it. That's my conclusion to the video. As I said, the 6800 I think is a very, very nice card, and I am so happy to see AMD back in the game. Well, if they had cards available in the stores at least.